So today I'll be talking a little bit about like equanimity and also how to heal like some of the ways in what happens when we don't have that balance. So for me that was like judgments around consumption, food guarding even, or the idea of food guarding, constant vigilance. And the reason that I'm bringing this all up kind of is because if we think about like whether things are good or bad, and I'm going to be sharing now from at first from this class I took when I was at Ananda Ashram, which is, and also like some stuff on Instagram I found out about this. Karen Monteverde, Tejas and Karen Monteverde have these workshops, and so they talk about how there's shifts in polarity. We calibrate different degrees of the same energy field because it's my attraction or repulsion that causes it. So whatever the thing, person, or experience is to be magnetized, if we feel a lack of abundance, we're actually already in the field, and we only have to choose the polarity that becomes attractive and not repelling. So for example, love and hate are shades of like and dislike. Hot and cold are shades of the same thing, of like heat or temperature. And we control our perception, which means we can use emotional information as a barometer. Subconsciously held thoughts direct how we think, feel, behave, and emote. The brain wiring is from underlying auto commitments that give input through directives. So there's this in-between area that we're constantly navigating. In other words, the shading into each other that at points we can be at a loss is, what are my original agreements causing me confusion or distress or pain? What makes me susceptible, for example, to abuse or unhappiness that I've already suffered, or that I'll never heal from, or that it's my fault? Right? I find it hard, and then personally, it's like I wrote this, I find it hard to speak up in the moment or stand up for myself or create healthy boundaries. That's why I have these YouTube videos. My integrity level is high, but I'm dismayed if it's questioned, and I work hard to sustain a sense of security. I avoid situations that could threaten it. That's what I'll be going in deeper today with the practice, with the prompts. I feel deep down I can only be loved for my efforts and accomplishments. I consciously feel others will only love me and care for me if I attend to their needs first. This was all part of the workshop. I couldn't have necessarily had all this self-awareness without her help and his help. I see myself as an empath, put other people's problems and needs first. This is going back like 7 years. Between 5 and 7 years is when I used to go to visit at this cycle in my life. So please forgive if anything I've mentioned doesn't agree exactly, but this is how I felt then. And I still have these tendencies. I put other people's stuff, problems and needs first, and sort out my own later. There's unlovability, lack of boundaries, not allowed to express, feeling afraid I'm a bad seed, I'm evil, I'm the blamed one, everything's my fault, I'm going to end up alone, people would be happier if I was gone, I should be ashamed of asserting boundaries, I have to appear in a specific or special way. Who I am is obstinate, my desires, which seem legitimate, are actually rebellious or defiant or invalid. I'm a sponge, a leech, a bulldozer, difficult, lazy. I eat too much. My privacy and safety doesn't matter. So clearly this was a lot of stuff that I'd grown up with, and it was handed down to my parents from their parents and my community. So doing this work means I look at my emotions as tools. When I'm stuck in the spin or the vortex of an emotion, I can figure out what it is first. With a cup, is it ceramic? Is it plastic? Is it paper? No one knows more than me. For me, just need to take the time to get to know me, right? So emotions aren't actually bad or good. They're on the spectral scale, on a barometer, like hot, cold. They're different levels of intensities. Now, there's tendencies and patterns which are bundled together with these impressions. These impressions are previously agreed to things, which causes thoughts, which causes emotions, which causes desires, which causes actions. And they're like called vasanas, which are like the pattern of how to look at it, right? So every time I feel this, I do this. Every time I think this, I do this. But from the thinking, there's the agreement to the thought, to the emotion, to the judgment, to the desire, to the action. So we can start by looking into where it came from, or look at the agreement with it and why it's a bad tendency. The associations become what I identify with, causing me to be non-liberated, since I become convinced that my happiness, which is within me all along, is external. Changing habits is only possible when we want to. Then the rest of the process is, at first we start to notice, the action we're doing because of the thought, the original agreement. We start to notice after. At some point, oh, now I see what happened. Then we start to notice right after. Then we start to notice during. Then we start to notice immediately prior, and finally we start to notice in advance, I'm starting to feel this way on that barometer, right? Those agreements start to come up, and those thoughts, I mentioned a lot of them. Insecurity and vulnerability are strongly correlated because I can choose to be less vulnerable in order to slow down enough to work with them. So sometimes being so vulnerable is not actually helping us to actually be secure. We do need to take 100% responsibility for ourselves, which could be scary, but we need to slow down enough to be able to do that. So we don't have to be 100% vulnerable all the time. We have to stop enough to find out the trigger in order to ask, is it true? Because if it's not true, we could right away say, what would I rather believe, right? Am I a bad seed? No. There's some programming I have, and I'm learning how to take that out, because what's not in the seed will not grow. Those are not who I really am, right? So, for example, and then I can restrain the old pathway as I retrain the new pathway. And there's many ways. I mean, everything that there's self-hypnosis or hypnosis, creative visualization. You can have signs all around, affirmations, writing, but you do it like a training. Like you want to learn a new language, you actually have to expose yourself to it in many ways. So, and then if it's a perspective problem, you would say, why is this my perspective? Like, why do I see it like this? So it gives us a way in. Additionally, we can work on how nothing is external can hurt me because it's all from the inside, and I'm the expert on me. No one can protect me better than I can protect myself. I know who I am and what I need. And these are steps to empowerment. We learn how to trust the parts of us we didn't trust before. We rely on internal processes instead of external. And we start to see that there's different kinds of energies. There's calming energy, there's chaotic energy, and then there's lethargic, like stuck energy. And emotions are energy in motion. So that's where I will stop with giving information. And now I'll say that in working on this area, I had developed like 4 prompts. So I'll read them out here. First of all, what does equanimity mean to me? What does it mean when my barometer is calibrated and everything's okay, kind of, or my agreements are working for me and I'm able to find balance, know everything's internal, I'm not relying too much on the external. For me, it means making space to acknowledge the dark inner voices and thoughts too. It's existing in a difficult experience without denying or running away, feeling like a freak or a misfit. It's sharing where I'm at without planning in advance what sounds good to say or what looks good to show. It is exposing myself without needing understanding and feeling vulnerable as a threshold for increasing trust. To me, that specifically means not being 100% vulnerable all the time, but exposing myself without you needing to understand me, feeling vulnerable. So that's my threshold for increasing my self-trust. See, I could handle being a little vulnerable with this person. Or not self-trust, relationship trust. It is channeling anger at God and starting from self-forgiveness to open the channel of bonding with the creator of my journey and the designer of my abilities, including my vision, my strength, my discipline, withstanding temptation, versus getting angry at others or channeling my forgiveness only to others. Accepting past incidents is unchangeable. Accepting that, the best I could do is change now. In other words, I accept those incidents. I can't change them. They happened already. And sitting with how actions and choices have consequences means I learn to relate to effects with more grace. And I start to notice earlier on in the process, right? Giving up the need to control the outcome, letting life unravel as I make peace with uncertainty. And I learn to relate to the mystery without reacting by automatically filling in the blank. It wasn't so good for me to fill in the blank automatically. I'm learning, because sometimes when I automatically fill in the blank, it's actually a really horrible agreement. I don't like the agreement. It hurts me. What does constant vigilance look like for me? Which is when I'm not feeling safe and I'm not feeling protected. And I'm feeling overly vulnerable, overly exposed, or I'm in the process of being triggered. The emotions are high. It looks like neck tension, jaw tension, shoulder tension, staying by myself, avoiding intimacy, not taking deep breaths or slowing down, or listening to sensations, rushing to the next thing, doing, finishing, producing, scheduling, planning, interpreting in a skewed way both the meaning of the circumstances and also the supposed intentions of others, setting myself up for accepting failure, rejection, abandonment, not believing in myself, future tripping, and preparing for worst case scenario. So now in terms of using this, now honing in on something specific, I'm going to use food here. I've looked at food in many ways, and maybe I'll have another video about it at some point. the spiritual healing around our consumption in this country, especially where I am, which is America, and salt, sugar, fluidity, like, you know, with things that are fluid enough or there's too much salts and sugars, or also if we're consuming based on wrong reasons, like trying to have control or, you know, trying to soothe ourselves, which is fine. There's comfort food for a reason, but like food guarding, which is like not really being generous, or also like consumption, like feeling like bad to consume. So for me, when I explore this and being vulnerable as a way of learning how to trust this aspect of myself too, and take better care of it. First, I'm learning what it is. Is it ceramic? Is it plastic? Is it paper? I just want to have enough energy, and consuming sleep is not the same thing as consuming calories or substances. So basically, I'm working on getting more sleep instead of eating too much. Consuming is what consumes me. All senses consume, while touching, listening, looking. Reading is also consuming knowledge. I can use both my eyes more carefully when looking with focus. Consuming others' opinions can bring me inner division and feel unnormalized if I take them as my own. And these are like agreements I'm making, right? So when I feel unlovable, I'll either consume all the offered or free love, or I'll be defensive and feeling unworthy. And finally, what I consume can make decisions for me about what I will consume. And then more specifically, now honing in from consumption to food guarding, when I try to have things in the storage pantry I don't seem to worry as much that there's not enough. So it's kind of like when I'm trying not to let food go to waste. So my pantry's full of things I don't even want to eat. I start to feel like I have to guard it. You know, I'm not even going to eat it. I have to guard it. It's like it represents something. I can connect with my future self who will have the food in the body system. I can give away food, cook for others, buy them food, like use food as service. I don't have to accept free food just because it's free, or when I'm with family, I don't have to look at anyone else's plate, just focus on my own mindful eating. Cooking with love and gentleness, touching the food like it's already part of my skin, like my body, could be very healing. And shifting a bit to eating for the past consciously and not just for the future. So while I'm eating, I'm like thinking of all the work I did and how yum and yum. Sometimes when I eat and I'm worried I'm not going to have enough energy for the future, I try to eat more. But when I sleep enough, that doesn't happen. So I hope this was helpful and interesting. And I hope this video uploads today. Had 2 days last week, so I'm not the best luck. But I'm preparing lots of great new material, both from old, I would say old, 5-6 years ago. It's still relevant. Some of these materials are from that time, and I'm always preparing, you know, these prompts that help me also to make this work personal. Not every day, but a lot of the times. So thank you, and have a blessed day. Thanks for spending this time with me.